There's a plant growing in the cracks of your driveway right now that you have been told is a weed. You have probably pulled it, sprayed it, cursed it, and thrown it in the trash without a second thought. And the whole time, it was one of the most nutritious leafy greens ever measured by a laboratory. I'm not exaggerating to keep you watching. I'm telling you something that is documented, repeated, and quietly ignored. The plant is called Purslane, Portulaca oleracea. You have seen it 1,000 times and never knew its name. It grows low and flat, with smooth reddish stems and small thick leaves that look almost like a tiny jade plant. It shows up in lawns and garden beds between paving stones in the worst dry soil you have where almost nothing else will grow. That last part matters more than you think, and I will come back to it before this video is over. Now, about the claims that brought you here. Let me be honest with you up front, because that is the only way this channel works. You have probably seen headlines saying Purslane has more calcium than milk. That specific comparison is not accurate, and I am not going to repeat it. Milk has more calcium than Purslane, gram for gram. Anyone who tells you otherwise is selling you a story instead of the truth. But here is what is true, and it is far more interesting than the milk comparison ever was. In 1992, a researcher named Artemis Simopoulos published a study in the Journal of the American College of Nutrition. She measured the fatty acids in purslane leaves and found something that other scientists initially refused to believe. Purslane contains the highest level of plant-based omega-3, called alpha-linolenic acid, of any leafy green vegetable ever tested. We are talking roughly 5 to 7 times more omega-3 than spinach, not a little more, multiples more. For comparison, against iceberg lettuce, the gap is something like 15 times. This humble lawnweed simply has no rival among greens for this nutrient. When Simopoulos first published the numbers, other researchers questioned whether her samples had been contaminated, because the values seemed impossible for a land plant. They were not contaminated. The plant really is that rich. The science held up and has been confirmed many times since. And omega-3 is not the only thing it carries. Purslane is loaded with vitamin A, more than spinach by a wide margin. It carries vitamin E at several times the level found in spinach, along with vitamin C, potassium, magnesium, and beta-carotene. So forget the milk. The real headline is this. The plant agriculture treats as garbage outperforms the vegetables we pay good money for at the store. Now, you might be asking the obvious question. If it is this good, why does everyone treat it as a weed? Stop. I have to be honest about something before we go any further because it matters. There is a popular story online that the United States Department of Agriculture officially reclassified purslane as noxious in a specific year, as if to suppress it. I went looking for the documentation behind that claim, and I could not find it. Purslane is not on the federal noxious weed list. I'm not going to feed you a conspiracy with a fake date attached to it, because the moment I do that, you should stop trusting everything else I say. The real story is quieter and, frankly, more useful to you. There was no grand suppression. There was simply neglect. For decades, almost all the research money spent on purslane went toward one goal, killing it more efficiently in commercial crop fields. It spreads fast, it competes with cash crops, and a single plant can drop tens of thousands of seeds. To industrial agriculture, that makes it a pest, full stop. Nobody patented it because you cannot patent a plant that grows wild in every country on earth. Nobody marketed it because there was no money in something free, so it fell into a gap. Too common to be exotic, too humble to be valued, too good at growing to be left alone in a field. The result is that one of the best wild foods in your region became invisible to the very people standing on top of it. That is the honest version of the story, and it is the version I am going to keep telling you. Before I go on, if learning the real names and real uses of the plants growing around you is the kind of thing you want more of, subscribe to this channel. Anyway, let me bring this back to your own yard, because that is where it gets practical. Purslane is what botanists call a succulent. The leaves store water, which is exactly why it survives in the dry, cracked, abused soil where your tomatoes give up. This is a clue most gardeners miss entirely. When purslane thrives in a spot, it is reading that soil for you. It tends to colonize ground that is compacted, low in organic matter, and frequently disturbed. In other words, it shows up where your soil is struggling. Pulling it and throwing it away wastes two things at once. You throw away free, exceptional food, and you ignore the message it was sending about your dirt. The old-timers in many cultures understood this. In Greece, in Mexico, in the Middle East, in rural China, purslane was never a weed. It was dinner. In Crete, populations that ate purslane regularly were part of one of the most studied healthy diets in the world. In Mexico, it is called verdolaga, simmered with pork and green chili. In the Levant, it goes into salads with cucumber and yogurt. The crisp, lemony, slightly peppery taste that I am describing is the same plant you have been spraying. Same species, same leaves. Now, I want to be careful with you here, because being useful means telling you the risks, not just the upside. First, purslane is high in oxalates, the same compound found in spinach and chard. For most people, that is no issue at all. But if you have a history of kidney stones, you should talk to your doctor before adding any high oxalate green to your routine in quantity. There is also a simple kitchen step that reduces oxalates significantly, and the exact method is one of 3 things I'm going to point you to in a moment. Second, and this is the one that actually matters for safety, Purslane has a dangerous lookalike. There's a common plant called spotted spurge that grows in the same cracks and beds, sprawling flat in the same way at the same time of year. Spurge is mildly toxic and is not food. To an untrained eye, a quick glance can confuse the two, especially when both are young and small. The good news is that telling them apart is easy once somebody shows you the one reliable test, and it takes about 2 seconds in the field. I'm not going to rush that test here in a sentence and risk you getting it half right, because getting plant identification half right is how people get hurt. So here is where I have to be straight with you about what is in the video and what is not. What I can give you in this video is the why this plant matters, why it was ignored, why it is growing where it grows, what does not fit into a 10-minute video, and what genuinely needs to be written down with photographs is the part you can act on safely. That is why I put together a companion field guide, and I want to tell you exactly what is in it so you can decide if it is worth it to you. There are 3 things in that guide, and these are the 3 I withhold from the video on purpose because they are the parts that have to be exact. The first is the spurge safety check. This is the side-by-side identification guide with a single field test that separates edible purslane from its toxic look-alike every single time. The second is the oxalate reset method. This is the precise kitchen step with timing and temperature that lowers the oxalate content before you eat it. The third is the regional harvest window. This is the month-by-month map of when purslane is at its peak in your part of the country, so you are not foraging at the wrong time. None of that is a secret somebody is hiding from you. It is simply information that has never been collected in one honest place for the backyard gardener. That guide is linked right here. English, product, link pending. It is a one-time thing, not a subscription, and if it does not deliver what I just described, you write 1 word back and you get every cent returned. You keep the guide either way. If you would rather not, that is completely fine. You can take everything I have already told you in this video and start identifying purslane today for free. That is the deal on this channel. The real knowledge stays in the video. The guide just makes it safe and exact to act on. Okay, back to the plant, because there is one more thing about purslane that almost nobody talks about, and it might be the most important part of all. Everything I have described so far treats purslane as food, but there is a second use that turns it from a free meal into a free tool for your entire garden. Remember when I said it thrives in poor, compacted, dry soil? That trait is not just survival. It is something you can put to work on purpose. And once you see how, you will never look at the bare, struggling corners of your yard the same way again. Let me show you exactly how that works.